There's no better place to spend a beautiful day like today than on a farm. That's why I'm here, on the outskirts of Carmel, Indiana, to learn about this state in the Middle West and to watch a farm at work. Two-thirds of the population of Indiana live in cities like Indianapolis and Gary, but Indiana has many rural areas. Glaciers once covered most of Indiana. As they moved, they flattened the land beneath. The Till Plains region has the best farmland in Indiana because minerals left by the melting glaciers enrich the soil. This region is a part of the Midwestern Corn Belt. Most of the corn raised in the United States is used to feed livestock, and Indiana leads the nation in popcorn production. A day on a farm is a long and busy one. Everyone gets up early to begin the day's chores. The corn here was planted in the spring. Now, in mid-September, it's harvest time, and things really get busy. A machine called the picker picks the ears and removes the husk. Then, the corn is put in big bins called corn cribs. Today, many farms use the latest technology in planting and gathering the crop. But of course, all that equipment gets very expensive. So it's harder and harder for small family farms to survive. Many farms today are owned by large companies. The weather can be a farmer's good friend or a cruel enemy. Bad weather can wipe out an entire crop. Under certain conditions, tornadoes form. The winds in the tornado's funnel cloud can move at more than 300 miles an hour. Other weather problems include hailstorms, blizzards, drought, and floods. The summer of 1993 saw the worst flood of the century in the Midwest. The first people in Indiana were here over 10,000 years ago. Then, in the 1700s, many Indian groups came through this area after being forced from lands in the east. These included the Miamis, the Kickapoos, the Delawares, and the Shawnees. In the 1800s, many pioneers came to Indiana to farm. Among them were Thomas and Nancy Lincoln from Kentucky. Their son, Abraham Lincoln, would become one of our greatest presidents. Well, now I know what it takes to put food on the table back home. And every time I eat corn on the cob, I'll hear the sounds of the tractor and the laughter of my friends. How butcher for the world, toolmaker, stacker of wheat, player with railroads, and the nation's freight handler. Stormy, husky, brawling, city of the big shoulders. That's how a famous poet from Chicago, Carl Sandburg, described his hometown. But Chicago wasn't always like that. The first people to settle the Chicago area were the Algonquin Indians. In the 1600s, two Frenchmen, Jacques Marquette and Louis Joliet, came looking for a northwest passage to Asia. This was a water route they hoped to find across North America. Instead, they found a route to the Gulf of Mexico, the Mississippi River. Then, in the 1770s, a Haitian fur trader named Jean-Baptiste Pointe de Sable built a trading post in the area. The settlement grew very quickly, mostly because of its location. Chicago is on the shore of Lake Michigan, one of the 5 Great Lakes. Together, these lakes make up the biggest body of fresh water in the world. Although they are connected to each other by straits and rivers, obstacles such as Niagara Falls made it impossible to travel directly across all the lakes by boat. To solve this problem, a series of canals was built. It's a lot cheaper to transport goods by water than by land. The Erie Canal connected the Great Lakes to the Atlantic Ocean in 1825. In 1848, the Illinois and Michigan Canal made Chicago the only city to connect the Great Lakes with the Mississippi River. Now, Chicago's reach extended to both the Atlantic Ocean and the Gulf of Mexico. Then, by the 1850s, railroads reached Chicago. Trains not only carried much needed goods to settlers who had moved west, but also hauled back their grains and livestock. From Chicago, they were shipped to markets farther east. Trains became such an important part of Chicago that companies started making them here. Today, Chicago is the busiest railroad center in the country. Chicago also has the busiest airport in the world. Because of its central location, many airlines connect at Chicago's O'Hare Airport. With all the goods passing through Chicago in the mid-1800s, 1900s, Chicago became a major manufacturing center. The United States Steel Company took iron ore from the Mississippi Range in Minnesota and made it into steel. Grains from the prairies were made into bread, cereals, and pasta. Stockyards sprang up to butcher prairie livestock. The city grew so fast during the 1850s and 1860s that people did not take the time to build houses safely. In 1871, a fire started, and the wind from Lake Michigan helped spread it. By the time it was over, a third of the city had burned down. The people of Chicago were proud of how fast they rebuilt their city. The population had grown from 300,000 in 1870 to 1 million in 1890. People started calling Chicago the Windy City because of all the boasting. Today, when people use the term Windy City, they are referring to the strong winds from Lake Michigan. Besides being a major commercial hub, Chicago is also a leading cultural center. Remember that Sandburg poem I quoted earlier? It described Chicago as a tough, hardworking town. But my favorite line, a part I didn't mention before, describes Chicago as a tall, bold slugger set vivid against the little soft cities. You know, a lot of kids like me love really big things. That's why I love Rapid City, in the Black Hills of South Dakota. Mount Rushmore is here, which honors 4 of our presidents. South Dakota is in the Middle West on the Great Plains. Most of the land here is flat and the soil is rich, ideal for farming. But 2 natural features don't look anything like farmland. The Badlands is a semi-desert area with almost no plant life. The rain has formed the rock into strange shapes over the years. The Badlands got their name because farming and even traveling across them is so hard. West of the Badlands are the beautiful Black Hills. The Sioux called them the Black Hills because from the plains, the pine forest here looked black. The name Dakota also comes from the Sioux and means friends. Long ago, the Sioux of the Great Plains were hunters. They moved their villages from place to place according to the seasons. Buffalo was their main source of food. Other people came to South Dakota to farm the land, and many came for gold. In South Dakota, the promise of gold had tragic consequences. In 1874, gold was reported in the Black Hills area within the Sioux Reservation. A reservation is land set aside by the government for Indians to live on. United States Army troops violated a treaty with the Sioux by entering the area to look for the gold. The area exploded with prospectors. Soon, struggles broke out between the Indians and the newcomers. In 1876, the Sioux were forced to give up claims to the Black Hills. In 1890, a terrible fight broke out at Wounded Knee Creek. Many unarmed Indian men, women, and children were killed by United States soldiers. Wounded Knee has become a symbol to Indian people of their bitter history with the United States government. Today, there are more than 50,000 Indians in South Dakota. The second largest reservation in the United States, Pine Ridge, is mostly within the state's borders. Gold is still important in South Dakota. South Dakota now mines more gold than any other state except Nevada. More gold is mined at the Homestake Mine than at any other mine in the West